The noose swung lazily from the old mesquite tree at the edge of Dead Man's Creek, creaking in the dry wind that swept across the dust-choked valley. The woman beneath it was barely alive, her wrists bruised, her breath shallow. Her name was Naya, half Apache, half white, and to the small town of Red Hollow that made her nothing. They called her a curse, a reminder of the wars and bloodshed between the settlers and the tribes. When a rancher's barn burned mysteriously one night, they needed someone to blame, and Naya, with her dark eyes and wild hair, was easy prey. Sheriff Boone didn't even wait for a trial. "A half-breed don't deserve the Lord's justice," he'd said, tightening the rope with his own hands. By sunrise, the town had gathered, faces twisted with hate and fear. Children stood on their fathers' boots to see, women whispered prayers, and men spat tobacco into the dust. "Let her swing," someone shouted. Naya said nothing. Her eyes, even as the rope brushed her neck, were full of quiet fire, defiance that refused to die. When they kicked the stool, her body jerked violently, and the desert fell silent except for the wind. But fate had other plans. From the ridgeline above, a lone rider had been watching. His name was Colton Hayes, a weathered rancher with eyes that had seen too much loss. He'd fought the Apaches once, years ago, but had come to hate the killing. Now he lived alone on his land, far from town politics and vengeance. Yet when he saw that mob hang a woman for her blood, something deep inside him cracked. He spurred his horse hard, dust flying behind him like smoke, racing down the ridge. By the time he reached her, the crowd had begun to drift away, their cruelty spent. Naya hung limp, her body swaying gently in the wind, but her fingers twitched. She was still alive. "Damn fools," Colton muttered, cutting the rope with his hunting knife. Her body fell into his arms, light as a child's. He laid her gently in the dust, pressing his ear to her chest. A heartbeat, faint but there. Without a word, he lifted her onto his horse, wrapping her in his worn coat, and rode away toward the horizon. Behind him, the wind erased the mob's footprints, as if the land itself refused to remember their sin. That night, under the dim lantern glow of his cabin, Colton nursed her back from the edge of death. He poured water over her cracked lips, cleaned her wounds, and spoke softly, not to her, but to the ghosts that haunted them both. "You're safe now," he said, though he wasn't sure it was true. Red Hollow wouldn't forget this. By morning, word would spread. The rancher had saved the half-blood witch. The men who had stood under that tree would come for her again. But Colton didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt alive, felt purpose. As dawn broke, Naya stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She saw the man beside her, rough, scarred, but kind. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "Why?" Colton looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "Because no one deserves to die for who they are. And because from now on, you're mine to protect." The desert wind howled through the valley, carrying with it a new story, one that would shake Red Hollow to its core. Days turned into weeks as Naya healed under Colton's care. She spoke little at first, haunted by nightmares of the noose and the hateful faces that watched her die. But slowly, her spirit returned. She began tending his horses, mending his clothes, and even smiling when he teased her stubbornness. Colton found himself drawn to her quiet strength. She wasn't broken. She was tempered like iron in the forge. And though the scar on her neck would never fade, neither would her resolve. One evening, as they sat by the fire, she told him her story, how her mother was an Apache healer and her father a soldier who deserted his post for love. Both were murdered when the wars ended, leaving her with neither tribe nor home. "I was too white for the Apache," she said, "and too Apache for the whites." Colton's jaw tightened. "You got a home now," he said simply. But peace doesn't last long in the West. One morning, smoke rose on the horizon, riders coming fast. Red Hollow's men, armed and shouting, had found her again. They rode into the ranch like a swarm, rifles gleaming, shouting for her blood. "Bring her out, Hayes." Sheriff Boone's voice boomed. "You're harboring a witch and a traitor." Colton stepped out onto the porch, his Winchester leveled steady. "Ain't no witch here," he said. "Just a woman wronged by cowards." The sheriff spat. "You'd fight your own town over her." Colton didn't blink. I'd fight the whole damn world. Gunfire cracked the silence. The fight was short but fierce. Colton's skill and Naya's quick thinking turned the tide. When the dust settled, Boone lay wounded, and the others fled, shame heavy on their faces. Colton turned to Naya, breathing hard, a bullet grazing his arm. She ran to him, eyes wide with tears, pressing her hands to the wound. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "I already told you," he said with a faint smile. "You're mine." Weeks later, Red Hollow changed. Folks began to whisper not about the hanging, but about the rancher who defied the mob, and the woman who survived death itself. Naya stood taller now, free beneath the open sky, her scars a mark of pride, not shame. She and Colton worked the land together, side by side, bound by something deeper than blood, something born in fire and forgiveness. And sometimes, when the sun dipped behind the mesas, she'd touch the rope scar on her neck and whisper, "The land remembers." Colton would wrap his arm around her and reply, "So do I."